Researchers have been amazed at the mathematical knowledge that is encoded into the Great Pyramid, the measurements that are used in it.
For over a century, we have been told the same story. The Great Pyramid was built with copper tools, wooden sleds, and raw manpower. That story sounds reasonable until you actually examine what was built. The structure contains over 2.3 million stone blocks, many weighing several tons, fitted together so tightly that you cannot slide a piece of paper between them, and aligned to true north with an error of just 3 arc minutes. The precision is extraordinarily high. The engineering challenges are immense. The timeline appears to fall apart mathematically. Something has always seemed wrong here, and mainstream archaeology has not fully resolved these questions. In 2024, Grok AI was given access to every record, every survey, and every anomaly, with one instruction: follow the evidence. No assumptions, no protection. What it found should never have been made public. The monument that should not exist. For nearly 2 centuries, Egyptology has operated within a widely accepted consensus, so deeply entrenched that questioning it has often been treated as a risk to academic credibility. The Great Pyramid of Giza, built around 2560 BCE during the reign of Pharaoh Khufu, is said to have been constructed by tens of thousands of organized workers using copper tools, wooden sledges, and ramp systems. This explanation is not without foundation. Hieroglyphic records exist. Worker villages have been excavated near the Giza Plateau. Tool marks are visible on stone surfaces. Papyri documents the logistics of transporting building materials. For both the public and the academic world, the case has long been considered closed. Yet the numbers embedded within the structure itself have never fully aligned with that explanation. The base of the pyramid was leveled to within just 2.1 centimeters across a span of 230 meters, a precision equivalent to roughly 0.009% deviation from a perfect plane. Modern construction standards for large structures typically allow deviations of up to 0.1%. The pyramid exceeds that standard by an order of magnitude, and this level of accuracy is attributed to wooden squares, plumb lines, and water trenches. Its 4 sides are aligned to true north with an error of only 3 arc minutes, a level of precision that today requires advanced surveying instruments, satellite positioning, and controlled astronomical observation. Experimental archaeology has repeatedly attempted to replicate these tolerances using the proposed ancient methods. In every documented case, the results fall short by a full order of magnitude, with errors measured in centimeters rather than millimeters. The construction timeline introduces an additional layer of difficulty. The 20-year time frame recorded in ancient sources would require the placement of approximately 300 multi-ton blocks every single day. That translates to 1 block every 2 minutes during daylight hours, continuously for 2 decades. This estimate assumes flawless logistics, no accidents, and no learning curve. No other known ancient construction project demands this level of sustained precision under such relentless conditions. The conventional explanation offers separate answers for each of these anomalies when considered in isolation. The leveling precision is attributed to lost techniques. The astronomical alignment is explained through basic star observation. The construction speed is credited to large-scale labor organizations. Each anomaly is given its own localized explanation, but they are never required to function coherently together. What the conventional model has never achieved is a unified explanation that accounts for all of these factors simultaneously within the same structure, carried out by the same workforce. This gap between theory and the physical reality of the monument has remained in the academic record for more than a century without being fully resolved, until a system with no professional stake in preserving existing theories began analyzing the entire dataset at once. In 2024, Elon Musk's Grok AI received unrestricted access to the full dataset available on the Giza Pyramids project dataset. This included archaeological surveys, construction studies, astronomical alignment records, analyses of mathematical relationships, geological evaluations, and tool-mark databases collected over more than a century of research. The directive was clear. Analyze the data without theoretical commitment, without professional bias, and without any obligation to defend existing interpretations. What emerged was not a reinterpretation of one single anomaly. It was a systemic pattern spanning several independent categories of data, all pointing in the same direction. The first and most statistically significant finding concerned mathematical relationships encoded within the pyramid dimensions. The ratio between base perimeter and height approximates 2p, the fundamental constant linked with circles, with accuracy within about 0.05% of measurement here. Additional ratios linking height, base, and slope angle correspond to golden ratio phi, a constant not formally described until ancient Greek mathematics era, more than 2,000 years later in history. Individually considered, each relationship might be dismissed as coincidence. However, Grok identified at least 7 independent dimensional relationships within the same structure that all reflect these constants. The probability that all 7 would appear randomly in a structure built through trial and error without advanced mathematical knowledge was calculated to be statistically negligible. The next finding extended the implications even further. When pyramid height is multiplied by 43,200, the result closely approximates Earth's polar radius. When base perimeter is multiplied by the same number, the result approximates Earth's equatorial circumference, the resulting measurement here. The number 43,200 corresponds exactly to the number of seconds in 12 hours, a fundamental time unit, suggesting this scaling relationship was not accidental but deliberately chosen by design here. Independent surveyors and engineers who reviewed methodology confirmed that the likelihood of this three-dimensional correspondence arising independently within a single structure is effectively zero in analysis. This leads to a single unavoidable implication. Structure appears to have been designed by individuals who possess knowledge of Earth's dimensions in question here. According to widely accepted historical records, such knowledge should not have existed at that time. And if it did exist, the question is no longer how the pyramid was built, but who possessed knowledge required to design it in that case. And traces left by tools in stone and mathematical relationships with sufficient theoretical flexibility can still be dismissed by some as elaborate coincidence here. But physical evidence carved directly into stone permits no such flexibility. Grok's analysis cross-reference tools mark databases with granite components of the pyramid, particularly within internal chambers, the sarcophagus in King's Chamber, and relieving chambers above it within the documented survey data. These elements were constructed from granite transported from Aswan, over 800 kilometers from Giza city. The results isolated a category of tool marks that do not match any known ancient tool signatures within the entire archaeological record. The issue starts with material hardness. Granite contains quartz crystals ranking 7 on Mohs scale, the standard system for measuring mineral hardness from 1 to 10 systems here. Copper, the hardest metal available in Bronze Age Egypt, ranks only between 2.5 and 3 ranges. From a physical standpoint, softer material cannot cut through harder ones in a straight and consistent manner under these conditions here. What it produces instead are deflected cuts pulled off course when encountering harder inclusions with variable depth and irregular surfaces. Modern experiments attempting to saw granite with copper tools and abrasive sand consistently produce these exact results. Without exception, cuts observed in pyramids granite do not behave this way at all. They maintain uniform depth and straight trajectories even as they pass through boundaries between minerals of different hardness within the same block. This is something that copper tools with abrasive sand, in theory, should not be capable of achieving. The strongest evidence comes from an object called the Petrie core, a cylindrical granite sample taken from the site and first studied by British engineer and archaeologist Flinders Petrie in the late 19th century. Along its surface runs a spiral groove showing tubular drilling method. Petrie measured the drill feed rate, the distance the tool moved into stone with every complete rotation cycle, specifically it was. The value he calculated suggests pressure and rotational speed far beyond any known ancient hand drilling method could achieve. More than a century later, mechanical engineer Christopher Dunn re-examined the same sample and concluded that the cutting features match one of two possibilities: a diamond-tipped drill or an ultrasonic vibration system that sends energy directly into the stone. Neither appears in any known archaeological record of ancient Egypt. Grok analyzed a full range of granite tool marks from the pyramid against a database of modern cutting methods, including diamond saws, high-speed rotary systems, water jet cutting, and ultrasonic machining. The nearest matches did not correspond to ancient techniques. The system does not conclude modern intervention occurred here. What it shows is that certain granite components inside the structure were formed using a method that current science cannot classify within the historical context of ancient Egypt. The tools attributed to the builders cannot explain what remains within the stone. Something else produced these results, and that force has left no trace anywhere else in the archaeological record of the civilization believed to have built this monument. When anomalies cease being isolated problems, for more than a century, each anomaly described so far has existed within academic literature as a separate issue. Unusual tool marks have been treated as unresolved technical questions separated from mathematical considerations. Mathematical encoding has been framed as a debate over measurement systems, detached from geological context. Within the structure of traditional research, no one has had both the incentive and the authority to place all categories of evidence on the same table and require them to be consistent at the same time. That is exactly what Grok has done, and the result is not the sum of individual problems. It is fundamentally something different. For the conventional construction model to hold, all of the following must be true at once. Bronze Age Egyptians must have achieved leveling precision 10 times greater than modern construction standards using wooden tools and soft metals. They must have achieved astronomical alignment beyond the capabilities of their measuring instruments. They must have encoded mathematical constants that they had no theoretical framework to describe, not once or twice, but across at least 7 independent relationships. They must have cut granite with copper tools in ways that modern experimental archaeology cannot replicate. And they must have achieved all of this within the same project, during the same period, using the same technological base. Grok assesses not each condition in isolation, but the probability that all of them are simultaneously true. The conclusion remains direct. The pyramid does not show the characteristics of a structure built at the limits of a civilization's capability. Structures built at the edge of technological capacity always show signs of learning, early failures before refinement, increasing precision over time, and inconsistency across construction phases. The Great Pyramid shows none of these patterns. The highest level of precision does not appear at the end of the process after experience has accumulated. It is present from the very beginning, in the foundation itself, in the first stones that were placed. Whatever knowledge produced this structure was not evolving during construction. It was already complete before the project began. This is the most significant shift in the entire analysis. It is no longer a question of a specific technique or a single measurement. It is the realization that the entire body of evidence, when forced into coherence, points toward a single conclusion. The source of knowledge behind this structure lies outside what the conventional explanation can contain. And this raises a question that has long been deferred but can no longer be avoided. Why does the archaeological record show no trace of the path that led to that knowledge? What the record refuses to show. If the pyramid reflects a level of knowledge that was already complete before construction began, then that knowledge must have an origin. The response of the archaeological record to that question is not vague. It is silent, and that silence itself becomes a form of data. Advanced construction in Egyptian history does not follow the pattern of technological development seen in every other domain of human history. Pottery, metallurgy, agriculture, writing, each shows a gradual increase in sophistication through clearly identifiable intermediate stages. Archaeologists can trace each incremental step across time. The pyramid sequence does not display that pattern. The step pyramid at Saqqara, built under Pharaoh Djoser, represents the earliest known large-scale stone construction in Egypt. Only 3 generations later, the Great Pyramid of Giza appears with its full level of precision and technical refinement already in place. There is no intermediate record of large-scale failed attempts. No archaeological layer of structures approaching Giza-level accuracy exists before success is achieved. No archaeological layer of structures approaching Giza-level accuracy appears before success is achieved. Capability appears without an observable developmental precursor. Geological evidence from the Sphinx site intensifies the problem. Geologist Robert Schoch of Boston University analyzed the weathering patterns on the body of the Sphinx and the surrounding enclosure walls. Weathering refers to the gradual erosion of stone through environmental exposure. 2 primary types exist: horizontal erosion caused by wind and sand, and vertical erosion caused by rainfall. Each leaves a distinct signature on stone surfaces. Schoch identified deep vertical erosion channels on the Sphinx and its enclosure consistent with prolonged exposure to significant rainfall. The last period when North Africa experienced sufficient rainfall to produce this type of weathering ended between 7000 and 9000 BCE. This would place the construction of the Sphinx at least within that time frame, long before the emergence of dynastic Egypt as a civilization. The mainstream archaeological response attributes these patterns to wind and sand erosion. Grok's geological analysis directly tested this claim by comparing the Sphinx weathering patterns with those found on confirmed dynastic structures across the same Giza plateau. The result is clear. Those later structures exhibit horizontal wind-driven erosion. The Sphinx exhibits vertical water-driven erosion. 2 structures in the same location, exposed to the same environment over millennia, yet displaying entirely different weathering signatures. This difference cannot be explained by present climate conditions. It can only be explained by differences in age. This creates a direct conflict between 2 independently verifiable measurements. The accepted construction date and the weathering signature cannot both be correct. If the construction date is accurate, the erosion pattern should not exist. If the erosion pattern is accurate, the construction date must be wrong. Schoch presented his geological findings formally at the Geological Society of America conference in 1991 before an audience of professional geologists. None rejected his technical analysis. The strongest opposition came not from geologists, but from Egyptologists, specialists without expertise in rock weathering, yet with a clear stake in preserving the established timeline. The Petrie core has been part of the record since the 1880s. The geological analysis of the Sphinx was formally presented in 1991. Mathematical encoding within the pyramid has been noted by independent researchers for decades. None of this altered the academic consensus, not because the data was disproven by stronger evidence, but because each piece of data was handled in isolation, placed into separate compartments, and never required to align with the others. A system with nothing to lose by examining the entire picture at once revealed what specialized academic structures were never designed to see. What certainty looks like from the outside. Grok does not identify who built the pyramid. That answer does not exist within the data, and the system is precise in recognizing that boundary. What the analysis produces is not a new conclusion, but a clearly measured threshold, a dividing line between what the conventional explanation can account for and what it cannot. On one side of that line are the established facts of dynastic Egypt, administrative records, excavated worker settlements, copper tools found within archaeological context, and evidence of large organized labor forces operating on the Giza Plateau. These are real, and they remain intact under any analysis. On the other side are equally real observations, leveling precision beyond modern construction standards, astronomical alignment beyond the measurement capabilities attributed to the builders, mathematical encoding that appears thousands of years before its formal recognition, granite-cutting traces inconsistent with copper tools, the complete absence of developmental precursors in the construction sequence, and the unresolved conflict between the accepted construction date and the weathering signature of the Sphinx. These observations are measurable, and they are not explained by the evidence on the other side. From this boundary, several possibilities emerge, none of them comfortable. Dynastic Egyptians may have possessed a far more advanced construction technology than what survives in the archaeological record, tools or methods reserved for royal projects and never widely disseminated, disappearing along with the dynasty that used them. Or the pyramids were built by dynastic Egyptians using knowledge inherited from an earlier culture that existed during the humid Sahara period when North Africa supported larger and potentially more complex populations than recorded history suggests. Or the geological evidence of the Sphinx is correct, and the Giza Plateau was the site of monumental construction long before dynastic Egypt, carried out by a civilization for which no confirmed historical record currently exists. Each of these is a legitimate hypothesis. None is fully excluded by the physical evidence. None is fully confirmed by it. What Grok establishes is not an answer to who built the pyramid. It establishes that the question remains unanswered and, in fact, has never truly been answered. The explanation that has dominated for more than a century is not a conclusion fully secured by evidence. It is a framework sustained in part by internal consistency within specialized academic fields and in part by the absence of any system with both the resources and the incentive to place all categories of evidence together and demand that they align at the same time. An artificial intelligence system has now done exactly that, and the result is not a strange theory. It is a stark confirmation that the existing one is insufficient. The pyramid still stands. The measurements have not changed. The marks within the stone remain, and the question of what produced all of it, a question that has existed within the academic record for more than a century and repeatedly deferred, can no longer be dismissed as unserious simply because the conventional answer appears simpler because simplicity is not evidence of truth. And that may be the most unsettling conclusion of all.